Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the wonderful story of Henry Sugar and Three More, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Richard Ayoade, forgive me if I said that wrong, Ray Fiennes, Ben Kingsley, and Dev Patel, directed by Wes Anderson. Now, before I get into this, I missed this one when it came out a few months after Asteroid City, which I didn't realize that's when it came out, by the way, number one. And number two, I saw at the Oscars that Wes Anderson won a Best Short Film Subject, something like that, Oscar for this show, and I'm here to review that one story of Henry Sugar as well as three others, and this is going to be, yeah, kind of a weird show at this point, but let's get into this show. Let's get into this. The show tells four different stories, starting with Roald Dahl, as in the writer of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and played by Ray Fiennes, writing some stories from his home called Gypsy House, as they're short films, as this first one is 40 minutes long, as he stays in a private house and where he tells the story of 41-year-old Henry Sugar, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, as he finds a book that fascinates him called A Report of Imdad Khan, as it takes place in 1935, and in this story, Khan, played by Ben Kingsley, goes to Dr. Chatterjee, played by Dev Patel, and Dr. Marshall, played by Richard Ayoade, something like that. And let me just say something right now. They're going to play different characters throughout the show. I didn't even bother bringing up, because I don't want to keep saying played by this person again and again and again and again and again, so that kind of annoyed me. For a bandage mask, where he can breathe through his nose, and they follow behind him, and this dialogue goes way too fast, as that feels like a Wes Anderson thing, and there were times the subtitles were not too helpful because they were talking way too fast. But I do like the production design as well as the set decoration, but the Grand Budapest Hotel pulled that off much better than, in my opinion, than this show did. Goes all over the place, as I can't understand a word they're saying. Khan approaches someone and shows him a scar on his leg from in the year 1886, as he monologues his life from 17 to 34 years old in 1907. And I was trying to understand what they're saying, but again, the dialogue goes way too fast that I can't follow the story. Henry tries to read. We get back to Henry, and he steals the book as he is inspired by it and learns Khan's meditation, as some of the cinematography looked bad. Looked so bad. And it felt like cinema was in the 1930s to around the 1960s. But don't get me wrong, this was set in 1959. And Henry tries to learn some tricks from the book and never left his flat until food and drinks and a flat, if anyone doesn't know what it is an apartment in England. And he goes to a casino and becomes a clean-shaven and plays blackjack and wins some money as he wins 30 pounds, meaning dollars in England, or 13 million, or whatever the frickin' word is. And I'm starting to think this is the least impressive of director Wes Anderson, as The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou is 10 notches better than this movie or show, in my opinion. And in case if anybody doesn't know, I forgot to bring this up. This is available on Netflix. So if you're curious about what I'm talking about, go to Netflix, watch this show, and maybe come back to this review. So I should have warned you about that a long time ago. I didn't think about it in time. So forgive me for that. Henry makes more money coming from the sky, and a police officer comes in and gets in trouble, as the officer advises to give money to the orphanages or hospitals, as they might need it more than anybody else. And Henry feels ashamed and thinks the officer has a point, in which he does, and disguises himself as various aliases, as 2 decades later he moves to Switzerland and dies at the age of 63 from a pulmonary embolism. And we move on back to Roald Dahl, and he tells a second story called The Swan, where Peter Watson has some kind of bird watcher, as he hangs out with his friend Ernie and Raymond, whom I'm guessing are his imaginary friends, as they try to commit suicide by the train, but the train goes to a different direction and doesn't kill Peter, while he has an active imagination, and Peter sees a swan and he climbs up on a tree, and the other two try to shoot the swan as Peter saves its life, and I wasn't impressed with how that story goes thus far. And it was fine made, but unfortunately, it's not my favorite of Wes Anderson's filmography. We move on to the story number 3 called The Rat Catcher, where an editor is approached by a rat man as Cloud enters the story, and he tells Cloud how he has to catch rats or else they'll spread wider and wider as he goes in the sewer job. And this is pretty pretentious, as Wes Anderson's career, other than this and Asteroid City, which I did like, kind of, his career is getting on the lower side, and I hate to say the word hack because that's something he's not. He's made many great movies, but this is unfortunately not one of them. The Rat Man continues to look for the stinking rats, as he can't find one, not one little rat, and takes a dead rat out of his pocket and shows it to Cloud and the editor as the rat looked claymated, but not as impressive as in Fantastic Mr. Fox or Isle of Dogs as far as I'm concerned. The world goes dark like the Rat Man versus Cloud fight comes in, and it was pretty freaky, but it goes back to daytime, which was rather pretty random. And Cloud and the editor look at him rather harshly as he walks away, and this story is absolutely strange. We get to the final story of Poison, where Timber Woods comes to check on Harry Pope as he has an emergency of some kind, where Harry has a type of snake called a crate, as he's led to believe it bit him, as Harry has been in a weird position for hours. And Timber gets Dr. Genderby over to the house while Henry can't move nor talk, and Dr. Genderby arrives and helps Harry and Timber out of, as the snake didn't bite him all this time, and Timber gets a bottle to get the snake off, and he soaks the bed sheets, and they kill the snake, and Harry jumps and sees there was no snakes on him whatsoever, and Harry acts insane, and the doctor and Timber leave the room, realizing he's out of his mind, and he leaves the house, and we get rolled down. And this climax by Wes Anderson, is as far as telling different stories goes, is a real mess. And I thought the entire time, Wes, please make your act speak slowly, as that was annoying the whole time. Let's get to the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.3 out of 10. This is the weakest movie in Wes Anderson's, or series of movies in Wes Anderson's filmography, as A Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou is better than this movie, as this is the pits for me. And the dialogue goes way too fast, and I can't understand a word they're saying, as subtitles weren't helping either. And I can't follow any of these stories, but I did like the production design and the set decoration. But in my opinion, the Grand Budapest Hotel did it so much better than this. There were times the cinematography looked bad, like it was in the 1930s to 1960s, and the movie took places there in one of the stories. But it doesn't mean it's good, as this is not a good show, and it's not well told. If it was, Wes, tell the actors to speak slowly. And I can't take how fast they go half the movie. I mean, it's Wes Anderson, sure, but he needs to make that into a habit. The movie was fine made, but it unfortunately wasn't my favorite, and I'm hoping this isn't the case, but Wes Anderson's filmography is kind of dying down as far as my opinion is concerned, and this is a mild non-recommendation. We'll see how Wes Anderson's future goes after this. And Asteroid City, I believe is his career might be dying down, in my opinion. This is 2 times in a row, but I did like Asteroid City, but just not as much as his other ones. Because this is the only in his filmography I can't recommend to anyone. I just can't. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, for coming back for Wes Anderson. And until he makes another movie, let's get strange.